In the heart of Amityville, nestled between ancient oaks and draping fog, stood a house that had become synonymous with fear. Its windows, like hollow eyes, watched the quiet street as if waiting for the next soul brave, or foolish, enough to cross its threshold. For years, no one dared live there, and even the most seasoned realtors avoided its listing. But Mark, desperate to rid himself of the property's curse, resolved to try something different. He posted an ad: caretaker needed for historic home, generous pay and free room and board, discretion required. The response came swiftly from a woman named Sarah. She was young but carried in her eyes a resilience that belied her age. When Mark met her at the edge of the property, she listened to the tales of hauntings, unexplained voices, and shifting shadows with a calm that unsettled him. He handed her a worn envelope containing 10 rules, his own attempt to arm her against the house's horrors. Sarah accepted the challenge, undeterred by the warnings, and moved in that very evening. The house greeted her with silence, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of anticipation, a hush before the storm. The air inside was heavy, and each footstep echoed strangely, as if the house was listening. Sarah explored the creaking halls, clutching the envelope tightly. She read the rules aloud, her voice trembling ever so slightly. Stay vigilant after sundown. Never speak the name of the dead. Keep the doors locked. Avoid mirrors. Do not engage with voices. Burn sage daily. Establish a safe room. Maintain a journal. Invite no visitors. Trust your instincts. She committed them to memory. But as darkness fell that first night, Sarah realized the house was more than haunted. It was hungry. On the second night, Sarah awoke to soft scratching at her bedroom door. She lay frozen, listening as the sound grew louder, then abruptly ceased. With dawn came a sense of relief, but as she ventured into the hallway, she found deep gouges along the wood, as if something had tried to claw its way in. She burned sage, tracing the smoke through each room, but the unease lingered. The days blurred together, punctuated by strange noises and fleeting shadows. Sarah followed the rules religiously, locking every door, keeping away from mirrors, and refusing to speak to the voices that sometimes called her name from empty rooms. But the house pressed in on her, testing her resolve. One evening, while documenting her experiences in the journal, Sarah felt the temperature drop sharply. Her breath formed mist in the air. The lights flickered and went out, plunging her into darkness. From the depths of the house, a chorus of voices began to chant, a low, mournful melody that seemed to seep into her bones. She clung to the rule: do not engage with voices. But when the voices began to whisper secrets only she could know, her childhood fears, her father's lullabies, Sarah felt her resolve waver. A sudden pounding came from the basement door, a rhythmic cadence that matched her racing heartbeat. She forced herself to stay put, remembering the rule about exploring at night. The pounding continued, relentless, until it abruptly stopped. In the silence that followed, Sarah heard a soft weeping from behind the door of a child. The next morning, she summoned her courage and approached the basement. The door creaked open with little resistance. The stairs spiraled down into a suffocating darkness. At the bottom, she found the remnants of a child's toy, a wooden soldier, its paint peeling. As she reached for it, a cold hand brushed her shoulder. She whirled around, heart hammering, but saw nothing. The air grew thick, and the shadows seemed to pulse with life. There were sounds of children laughing and singing. Sarah retreated upstairs, locking the door behind her. She added another entry to her journal, her handwriting shaking. Something is down there. It knows me. It wants me to come back. That night, the house grew hostile. Objects moved on their own. Doors slammed. The mirrors in the bathroom fogged over, and behind the mist, Sarah glimpsed fleeting faces, children, women, men, each contorted in agony. She remembered the rule: avoid mirrors. She covered them with towels, but the faces pressed against the glass, desperate to be seen. On the 6th night, Sarah found herself drawn to the attic by the sound of a music box playing a mournful tune. Dust motes danced in the moonlight as she climbed the rickety stairs. In the corner, she found an old trunk. As she opened it, a blast of cold air knocked her back, and a shadow surged from the trunk, swirling around her. She gasped, struggling to breathe, as the shadow whispered, "Let us out! Let us out!" Sarah staggered back, remembering the rule. Establish a safe room. She crawled to the small guest room she had chosen, the only space untouched by the house's strange energies. She locked the door and pressed her back against it, tears streaming down her face. She burned sage until the air was thick with smoke, and the whispers gradually faded. Days turned into weeks, and the house's torments grew more elaborate. At night, Sarah awoke to the sensation of hands pressing down on her chest, preventing her from moving. She felt cold breath on her neck, heard footsteps circling her bed, and saw doors open and close by themselves. Her journal filled with frantic entries, each more desperate than the last. One night, the house offered her a choice. In the living room, the fireplace roared to life, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. The flames twisted into faces, each one mouthing the words, "Help us." Sarah, trembling, remembered the rule. Do not engage with voices, but the agony in their eyes was unbearable. Defying the rule, she spoke, "What do you want?" "No city." The flames flickered, and the voices became one. "Free us. The house keeps us here. Break the cycle." A cold wind rushed through the room, extinguishing the fire and plunging Sarah into darkness. She felt something shift, a wall moving, revealing a hidden doorway. Against her better judgment, she entered. The passage led to a narrow room lined with mirrors. In each, Sarah saw not herself, but the spirits trapped within. Children reaching out, women weeping, men screaming in silent agony. The air vibrated with their suffering. Sarah pressed forward, her heart pounding. Suddenly, the mirrors shattered, and the spirits surged forth, enveloping her in cold, suffocating darkness. She fought to breathe, to move, to scream. But the house pressed in on her, demanding her surrender. In that moment, she remembered the final rule: trust your instincts. With every ounce of strength, Sarah focused on her own anger, her refusal to become another victim. She screamed, a primal sound that reverberated through the house. The spirits recoiled, the darkness retreating. Sarah fell to the floor, gasping for air. As she lay there, the house seemed to sigh. A long, mournful exhale. The shadows retreated, the whispers faded, and the temperature returned to normal. Sarah crawled back to her safe room, locked the door, and wept. For days, the house was quiet. Sarah burned sage, documented her experiences, and clung to her rules. But she knew the house was not finished with her. On the final night, a storm raged outside, wind howling through the trees. The lights flickered and died. Sarah, clutching her journal and a bundle of sage, sat in her safe room. The door rattled, and the voices returned. Louder and more desperate than ever, she stood resolved. "I am not afraid of you," she whispered. The spirits surged through the house, swirling around her, trying to break her will. Sarah lit the sage and walked through the halls, chanting words of protection. The house fought back, shadows lunged, objects flew, and the mirrors shattered in a cacophony of screams. But Sarah pressed on, her voice growing stronger. "You cannot have me. Leave this place. Find peace." The spirits shrieked, the walls trembled, and the air grew thick with despair. But as Sarah continued her ritual, the spirits began to dissipate, their cries fading into echoes. One by one, the faces in the mirrors vanished, the shadows retreated, and the house grew still. In the aftermath, Sarah found herself standing in the center of the living room, the air clear, the oppressive energy lifted. She felt a presence behind her, the spirit of the young girl she had seen in her first week. "Thank you," the girl whispered. "You have freed us." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. She knew the house would always carry its scars, but she had survived. She had kept her rules, trusted her instincts, and confronted the darkness head-on. When Mark returned, he found Sarah standing in the doorway, changed but unbroken. The house was different, lighter, quieter, no longer hungry for souls. Mark listened as Sarah recounted her ordeal, her voice steady but haunted. The house was put back on the market, its curse broken. Sarah left Amityville, her journal full of stories no one would believe. her spirit stronger for having faced the unimaginable. But as she walked away, she glanced back at the house. For a moment, she thought she saw the young girl waving from an upstairs window, her face peaceful at last. Sarah smiled, knowing she had given the house what it needed: compassion, courage, and the will to survive the darkness. And as the sun rose over Amityville, the house stood silent, waiting for its next chapter, no longer a prison, but a place of redemption.